Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. Now, the content that I'm going to show you this morning is coming off of an article coming from CNN around the way that they can stretch and find gun control with the incident around the 6-year-old who took a firearm to school. That story is something we haven't touched on, but don't worry. Where there's a problem, there is a gun control solution, and that is what we're going to walk through right now. Everything is always linked, and if you are a new or returning viewer, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning the notification bell on. We need as many people as we can to get in the fold, get in the trenches with us so we can pass the blessing of the Second Amendment along to the next generation. Thank you so much in advance for your consideration, and with that said, let's dive into this because, of course, most of us have heard about this tragedy. This is a story where a 6-year-old took a firearm to school and shot a teacher, which is a terrible tragedy. No one wants this on any side of any political aisle. But the thing that really bothers me about these types of situations, is it's almost like there's always a jump and a need to find a way to tie gun control to the problem. In this case, you have a 6-year-old, no purchasing ability, no background check, illegal to own a firearm, illegal to have a firearm, and also the fact that it's a child. All the while negating the obvious problems that what has to happen in a 6-year-old's mind, exposure, family life, and overall life experience to where that is something that becomes a norm. Can't talk about those things. No. We got to find a way to tie gun control because, like I said in the intro, for every single problem, there is a gun control solution. Check this out and let me know what you guys think in the comments field below. A 6-year-old shot a Virginia teacher with his mother's gun. The tragedy highlights the lack of strong, secure storage laws across the nation by Emma Tucker, Sunday, January 15th. So, again, all of those different gun control proposals wouldn't have happened here, wouldn't have none effect because it's obviously a minor. Not only a minor, this is a child. This is like 1 year beyond a toddler. Again, probably some focal points around environmental, some things around nurture, some things around family life versus, well, it's obviously the gun's fault. But we can't talk about that. That's why you didn't hear a big push on it until they found this angle. Check this out. CNN. In the week since a 6-year-old boy in Newport News, Virginia, took a gun from his home, brought it to school, and shot his teacher, community members and officials are grappling with an unsettling question. How did the child get access to a loaded firearm? That's the question that you want to really focus on first? I don't know. Maybe it's part of a tying together of the entire environment of this child. Why don't you talk about the idea that a 6-year-old made the connection to do A, B, and C, all of these actions? A 6-year-old is not born into that decision. That is something that is environmental, that is exposure, that is a lot of different things. Now, that being said, I'm not going to sit here and say the fact that a 6-year-old had access to a firearm is okay. It's not. But that does not mean that you have to do a requirement and law to demand and force secure storage determined by the state. That's the problem here. You're taking the responsibility away from the family and you're putting it on everyone else from the state. You have turned a personal responsibility into a state-mandated decision. That's the problem. But let's keep going because we got a few more things to talk about because they're going to try to sell it to you. It was the first shooting at a U.S. school in 2023, according to CNN analysis, highlighting what some gun policy experts believe is a dire need for a stronger, more consistent laws nationwide, requiring adults to safely secure their guns out of reach of children and others unauthorized to use them. It also reveals a lack of public education on the responsibility of gun owners to store their guns unloaded, locked, and away from ammunition, the experts say. Here's my big problem with this. As I mentioned in the earlier introduction, this is not a question of should a 6-year-old have access to this. Of course, a 6-year-old should not have access to this. That's a pretty universal understanding. That's not the point I'm advocating for. What I'm saying here is this is not a state-mandated decision, just like we saw in Michigan, just like we saw in New Mexico, and now we're going to see a push in Virginia. All of these things are going back to the personal responsibility of the individual. Then you can back out a little further and go, what in this child's life decided that this was a good idea? What contributing factors tied together? I'm willing to bet you dollars to donuts that it's not the gun's fault. I'm not saying it is anyone's fault. I'm not blaming anyone's feet. However, when a 6-year-old jumps to this, there's something else to look at, and it's not a firearm. Let's keep going. Research shows child access prevention and safe storage laws are effective in reducing shootings among youth, according to a report released on Tuesday by the RAND Corporation, a public policy research organization. The report recommends states without such laws consider adopting them to reduce gun-related suicides, homicides, and unintentional injuries and death among youths. Again, revisiting the personal responsibility angle here, this is not a state-mandated responsibility. This is not something that says if you don't store your gun in a certain way, like New Mexico's laws did, then you're going to have a felony on your record. Oh, and coincidentally, then you can't have firearms. Your Second Amendment rights will be forfeited because you didn't store your firearms the way that the state told you to. By the way, how's the state going to figure that out? Are we going to do spot checks? Are we going to do inventory checks? Or are we going to go into people's homes and see if something's there? Do you see the slippery slope and the can of worms that opens up? Anyway, got one more thing for you. Actually, two more things. Strongest laws have penalties, experts say. This is the tie-in to strengthen penalties of the state. There are key differences between child access prevention laws and safe storage laws, and the provisions of each vary widely from state to state. Secure storage laws typically have criteria designed to designate how the gun must be stored, loaded, unloaded, or separated from ammunition. Child access prevention laws are more flexible, generally saying gun owners must not knowingly store their guns in a place where a child could gain access to them. They're advocating away from safe storage practices, responsibilities, and into a state-mandated penalty. That's the problem, the crux of the issue right there. This is not something that needs to be the state's responsibility. This is on individuals like myself, like you, who actually take the responsibility and understand the great power that we have as American citizens with the Second Amendment right. This is not for the state to say, you can and cannot have this. Here are your imposed limits because we just don't like them. Here's how you store it. Here's how you better be checked on. And if you don't, you're going to have a felony. That is a slippery slope and a road to perdition if I've ever seen one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.